Hello scrappers and planet lovers, Tin Man here with another video. So for some reason it's raining hot water heaters. This is actually the third one that I've got in the last week and a half. And the great thing about water heaters is that they are 100% scrappable material. I could actually bring this in as is to a scrapyard and get tin weight price. It is very heavy. This one actually weighs 120 pounds as is. And tin right now, depending on where you are, is going for about 10 to 14 cents a pound Canadian. So a great price and a great item to bring in. However, before I do, there are actually a lot of goodies still on here that I'm actually going to make more money taking the time to separate from this water tank. There is some really nice brass on here, there's some stainless steel, some clean aluminum, and as you can see on top, there is still actually a couple pieces of copper pipe. So what I want to do today is take this apart. They are very easy to do so, but more importantly, show you how to identify the material, maximize your profit, and divert this entire thing away from the landfill. So I'm going to start with this in a second, and I do want to point out that there are different styles of water heaters. I have actually seen online there are some really old ones that are actually inside of this brass or copper. I've only seen one at a scrapyard that actually had the inner part as brass. I would love to get my hand on it, but no matter, this is still an excellent item as is. You can see, put a magnet to it. It does stick, so that shell is going to be tin. As well, some of the models that you will find do actually come with a motor on top as well as an appliance wire. And I do want to take this opportunity to give a huge shout out to a friend and co-worker of mine, Alicia Wells. Thank you for the tip for that water heater that I got last week. She saw online, someone posted on Facebook to all scrappers that there is a water heater at a certain address. She was kind enough to forward me the address, and I was lucky enough after work to go pick it up. It was still there. So again, thank you, Alicia Wells, for that. I will take this apart in another video. I don't have time for it now. This does have a nice motor inside. I'm hoping that it is copper winding. It could be aluminum. I'm not sure yet. But either way, there is some tin on this and some really nice appliance wire that is worth good scrappable value. So again, I will take this apart later. Thank you very much, Alicia. This one here, the first two items that I want to look at are the two nozzles here. And even if you have a small vehicle, these are still some great items that you can take off of this relatively fast if you have the proper tools. I do actually have another video in a 3-minute challenge. It's called 3-Minute Challenge, Big Appliances and Electronic versus Small Vehicles. I once had a car and I could not fit some of the water tanks inside of it. But regardless of that, there are still some great items. So I'm going to start with these two nozzles here. Have a pipe wrench here. I always carry a pipe wrench in my car on scrap day. Okay, these are very easy to take off. They just twist. Okay, so here's one. This one on the bottom, I just have to loosen it off here as well. Okay, and I do want to point out that when you are taking off the bottom one, there can still be some leftover water or other sludge inside of it. So I always have some type of plastic. I like using that pop-it plastic that you have there that not only is very entertaining to play with, but it does actually is useful to plug holes. Okay, there is a little bit of sludge you can see on the floor here, and I just put this right in the hole. That way that if I'm tipping this, I'm not spilling on my ground here. The first water tank that I actually picked up was extremely heavy. The guy came out to help me lift it, and he said, oh, I thought that I got all the water out of it. Unfortunately, it still had buckets of it, so once I emptied it, it definitely made it easier to move. But as you can see on my hand, there is a little bit of sludge. And I do want to take this opportunity to talk about these two different pieces of brass. As you can see, putting it up to the camera, this one here is more yellow, this one here is more reddish, and that's because this is classified as red brass, this is classified as yellow brass. This one here has more copper in it, and this is actually worth more money. Currently, yellow brass is going for about $3.05 a pound in London, Ontario. This one here, the red brass, is actually going for $3.57 a pound Canadian. So 52 cents more for this, and that's because of the higher copper content in here. However, in order to get clean value price, you can see the top there. I do have a magnet. This magnet does stick to the nozzle. I do have to remove that. As well, inside of that, you can see the coil there, that spring. That is magnetic as well. So in order to get clean red brass price, I do have to open this up. I'm just going to use a grinder, and I will have a video on this down the road. But I do have to remove all of that magnetic steel there in order to get clean brass. So again, this is red brass. Here's two other examples. This was the other water heater that I have again. So notice this is the bottom part. It's a lot more yellow. This one is more reddish tinge. So again, red brass. That is yellow brass. So make sure that you separate those in order to maximize your profit. There are different categories for sure. Okay. The next thing I do want to look at is on the top. I did have to remove a couple screws. Here is a little bit of tin. So I can actually leave this in there. Look at this large piece here. This is nice coil. But I can leave that in the drum. It is, as you can see, rusty. It is magnetic, so it is going to be still tin. The top of this as well is also magnetic. There's another piece. Want to get these two pieces of copper, and I've already actually loosened them with my pipe wrench. Okay, so I'm speeding up the process. But two really nice pieces of copper pipe. There's one, and this one. I actually have to do a little bit more work on it. You can see the pipe goes all the way down. This is actually plastic. But here are two copper pipes. And you will often find little pieces of this when you have water tanks. This, however, if I bring this in as is, you can see this is all copper. There is some brass. But if I was to remove this piece of steel here, that is going to be steel, a little bit more than tin. But if you only have a little bit of it, I just actually throw it right in my tin. So it's actually about 2 or 3 cents more than tin. But again, I'm not going to go to a different pile in my scrapyard for a couple extra cents. But if I was to bring this brass piece in with this copper, I'm going to get brass price. The rule is you can have copper on brass, but you can't have brass on copper. So doesn't matter if it's a small piece of brass on there, because it has brass, it's going to go for brass price. So I do have to remove that brass. The rest of this copper is actually going to be classified as number 2 copper. And that's because it has a lot of soldering on it. And copper, number 2 copper right now is going for about $4.45 a pound in London, Ontario, which is an excellent price. But there is still copper on here that I actually can get number 1 copper price for. This copper right here, if I turn it around, you can see the soldering right there. So all of this copper is going to be number 2. But this piece right here, from here to here, as well as this one, this is a little bit better to look at. You can see the soldering ends there, but I have a piece of number 1 right here. And number 1 copper is actually going for about 10 cents more a pound, so $4.55 a pound. And for some, it might not sound like a lot, just that little bit of work. But when you have a huge pile of it, it does add up. And right now, because copper prices have gone down a little bit, about a month ago, the difference between number 2 and number 1 was about 40 cents a pound difference. So that is a little bit closer right now. But again, as time goes on and the prices go up, you will see a higher gap. So again, it does pay to maximize your profit with that. And unfortunately, I have seen some scrappers bring a giant pipe in, and there is tons of number 1 on there. But because it had a small piece of soldering on it, they did not take the time to cut that off. They were downgraded to number 2 copper. So make sure you do that for yourself. I do also want to address any type of pipe. There is no classification for bare bright. Bare bright only pertains to copper wire. So it doesn't matter how clean your pipe is. It's either going to be number 2 copper or number 1 copper. Okay, so hopefully that answered that. But again, if there's brass on it like this, it's going to be downgraded to brass price. Okay, on the bottom here, I am just going to actually fill that one hole as well. I'm just going to turn this. The last thing I have to worry about is the bottom control panel here. The different styles that I have, some of them will actually have a nice long several strands of appliance wire on here. Just gonna fold this just so I can use a little bit of gravity, turn it. Okay, and I want to find the last piece here. Look at the last piece. Okay, there is a little bit of metal here, and I do have a small plate here that I have to move inside of here. So there are a couple bolts that I do need to get out in order to remove this one faceplate. This is where it'll have the window that has the flame, or if it's digitalized, it might have some different reading or some codes. But I do have to get this last faceplate off first to get at this coil here. Very easy. There it is. I'm gonna put on my safety glasses. There is the heating plate. Okay, so there it is. And I do want to check this. I have actually seen some, especially on things like barbecues, when they have the heating plate, this would be brass. This one is not going to be brass, of course, because of the rust, but I always do scratch it. I can see that it is metallic looking, and I also want to make sure with a magnet, you can see it too is magnetic, so it's going to be steel. But this item here, there are some pipes on here that are worth taking off, and I will look more at this one in a minute, but just going to cut some of it just to show you. Okay, this one first. There it is. Just going to cut a piece of it. I will work on it later off camera, but just to speed up the process, I want to show you the different metals that are on this. Okay, so there's two of them. Pipes here that I'm going to break open. Okay, so here is some aluminum, and this item here is actually stainless steel. I am going to have to screw it off or unscrew it later, but just for right now, just going to break it off. Okay, so just easy to do. There it is. Okay, get that out. Bring it up to the camera to show you. And this is what's nice about this stuff. It's very easy to play with, very easy to take off. But as you can see, these two pipes here, they are both metallic looking. And the next test I want to see is to see if it's aluminum or stainless steel or even just steel. Okay, so magnet test, first test. Both of these are non-magnetic that you can see. Okay, so this means that these are either going to be good stainless steel or aluminum. Okay, they are not brass. You do want to check sometimes brass, especially like your taps or bathroom pipes. Some of those will have a nice metallic coating on it. You cut it and it could be copper. These are not that. Okay, you would easily see the copper once you cut it. So both of these are either going to be aluminum or stainless steel, non-magnetic stainless steel. So the next test is the spark test. If I take a grinder and I put a grinder to these, aluminum will not spark. Stainless steel will. So I have my grinder here. I have my safety glasses. Gonna put these on. So just gonna test this pipe first. You'll see non-sparking. So there you go. Easy test. This is going to be good stainless steel, and this right now is actually going for 77 cents a pound. This clean aluminum here, it's going for about 50 cents a pound. So doesn't sound like a lot. It is light, but I do have a huge bin of clean aluminum. I actually just brought in over 180 pounds that I've been storing up, so I just throw it in a giant bucket. This hose you see here, I commonly find pieces of this or larger than this where at new houses, you'll get your natural gas hookups, your propane hookups to barbecues and other items in your house. But good stainless steel and aluminum, the spark test. Okay, the rest of this, some of them, as I said, will have aluminum coils through it. Here is my control panel, and just to get that off, there is different metals. The outside of this is cast aluminum. It does have, you can see a pilot or what are those things called? The push buttons that will produce a spark. But I'm just going to quickly see if I can unscrew this. And it does turn, so I'm just going to hit the end here. Okay, so glad that I didn't miss. But I know that this is going to open, and I don't want to turn it too much because there could still be water in it. But there is definitely some great steel still on here. Okay, inside of here, you do want to check. This is plastic. There is right here a little bit of brass, this end here. So here, right here, there's another piece of brass. So this is all brass. All I have to do is remove the screws. So this here, as you can see, non-magnetic. Put a file to it. Look at that. You can see that's a beautiful piece of brass that I just need to unscrew off of there. So some great items there. The rest of this box, as you can see, that is going to be cast aluminum. It does have, as I said, magnetic attraction. So you do have to make sure that you take off those nuts there. You see the nut on both of them. They will unscrew now that I have it there. As well, look at this, another piece of copper wire here. So this copper wire is free of soldering. It does have a little bit of tarnish on it, but a vinegar solution that I have cleans that right up. Upgrade this to #1. And I will include the link to that video in my description. Vinegar, great way to take off the tarnish. It does clean it easily. But again, another nice piece of copper, #1 copper. Okay, inside of that again, gonna have to open it, but some cast aluminum. So that is it. Again, as I said, if there was wire going from the top to the bottom, all I actually did in the other one was I just grabbed a pair of pliers, pulled it through the holes, and that gave me some 60% appliance wire. But the rest of this is now free of any other goodies than tin. It is still heavy. I can now throw it into my truck. Gonna, as I said, get probably about 112 pounds for this of tin price. So again, 10 to 14 cents a pound. I have lots of nice brass on here. I have my yellow brass, my red brass. Make sure that you separate them, as well as the magnetic attraction. I have the gear here, or the control panel, has some brass inside, as well as some cast aluminum, as well as some steel pipe here. So great item, as I said, 3 of them. I'm hoping that this good fortune for me continues. I'd love to find another one in the next couple days, but even just finding 3, excellent score, and that is the way of a scrapper's life. Some days it's great, some days there's nothing. So again, 3 water tanks, glad to get. Glad to remove them from any type of garbage and the landfill. Hope you found that informative. Please comment down below, like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Tin Man out.